What's up, guys? It's Virginia from the New York Daily News, and today I'm here live in the studio with Matthew Daddario and Alberto Rosende from Freeform's hit show Shadowhunters. Matt, can I call you that?
Yes.
Okay, great. And Alberto, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So I want to talk to you, obviously, about the show. How did you guys sort of prepare for your roles?
Initially, when we first and foremost, we read the books because the characters already have backgrounds and stories, and a lot of people depend on that accuracy because there's a lot of fans of the books. So that was the first thing. And then from there, we start to adapt it and start to make it a little bit our own. And I think that from there on out, it sort of followed the script, and sort of the character was created slowly over the course of the season.
And that's one of the cool things about TV is you get the time to really develop a character rather than have a character that's been established. Since we don't know where the end of our journey is going to be, every time we read a script, it's kind of adding new pieces, new nuances, new things you learn, new things you care about. You're like, oh, okay, cool, I see that this is really something that's driving him. Let's keep moving in that direction.
For sure. I know a lot of actors, when they take on a role, some of them, I know obviously your characters have been based on a novel, but did you guys do any writing backstory for yourselves to sort of like delve deeper into the role, or did you just sort of go based on what was in the novel?
I remember focusing on how the person, like who Alec would be sort of underneath, because in the first book there's not all that much Alec stuff. So sort of, based off of what I've read online and what I've read about the character, sort of trying to create. Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Awesome.
And then you sort of just try to see, okay, well, how would this person really be behaving, and what would be concerning him, and then you go from there.
Now, I did. In the books, I found a lot of music that Simon listened to, or references to music, and then from there, I built like my own playlist of things that I think Simon would listen to on different days, and then also a couple of friends reading the books. I was like, oh. In this moment, he reminds me a lot of this guy.
Right.
What do I like? What do I think they have in common? What is it? And then finding things, and then finding another friend that I was like, oh, cool. So Simon's essentially like two of my friends.
So you're drawing from your circle to develop your characters.
Yeah.
Awesome. And has Simon's playlist like affected you in any way? Like, has he introduced you to new artists?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Some artists I found because like if you go to Spotify and you click them, there's like, oh, similar to this. I'm like, okay, let me listen to that guy.
Okay.
And then other ones, actually one of my good friends that I've kind of thought of Simon a lot as, my friend Dave. He listens to a lot of music that I think Simon would listen to, and him and I hung out a lot.
Very
like
cool.
The year before I even auditioned for the role, so I was kind of preparing
so
for it
Dave's
without
like sort
realizing.
of your Simon muse.
Yeah, especially with the music, because he'd always be like, oh, listen to this new band that I just found. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of like, it sounds like it's from someone's garage, very like lo-fi, very cool, very quiet. I don't know. So there were different things I was able to pick from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about on set? Are you guys like once you make it to set, are you in character for the entire day, or are you like once the camera's off, you take a break?
Depends on the day. I mean, there's some days where you're filming something immediately, and then you're waiting for 6 hours, and then you film again. So obviously you're not going to do that.
And like the material you have too, depending. If it's kind of a heavier scene, it's better to kind of not stay in character, but stay a little bit in that world. For me, a little like emotionally, or just kind of. If it's a darker day, you're not jumping around, and if it's a fun day, then it's a lot. You get to have a little more fun.
Try to stay on an even keel.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. What about like the physical preparation for a role? Did you guys do any like crazy like protein and carb binging, like lots of brown rice and chicken, or
for season 1 was different than season 2.
Yeah,
for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Simon wasn't supposed to be very muscular season 1, so I didn't have to worry about that as much. We did work out, but then season 2, with the whole vampire change, for me, we really tried to. I was in the gym. I got to the set like 6 weeks early, 5 weeks early.
Oh my God.
And I was with Dom every day. We were in the gym like 6 days a week.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, going at it.
What about you, Matt? Same process?
Yeah, season 1 I had to do far more transformation than season 2 because I was more prepared. But season 1, a lot of running, a lot of weightlifting and eating right. It was pretty brutal season 1. Luckily, you can then maintain, and maintaining is a lot easier than trying to completely transform your body.
The diet's definitely the hardest part, though.
Yeah. And season 2 we did less of the diet, to be honest, because we were
already kind of where we needed to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got to kind of relax on some things, but if we focused on training, if we trained just as hard, the diet was more to just supplement the ability to do that training rather than actually trying to get to a certain place.
Right. Speaking of diets, before we started filming, guys, we were having a great debate about cereal. So, speaking of things that you had to, like, sort of cut out, I'm assuming...
Cereal was one of them.
Aw, poor you.
Yeah, I was very upset.
Yeah.
What about you, Matt? What did you have to cut out? What do you have, like, a cheat food, or do you guys operate on cheat days?
I mean, season 1, the big one was cutting out bread.
Carbs.
Cut out carbs.
Yeah.
Cut out carbs makes it really easy because you can't get as many calories. It's just very difficult to eat enough calories. So, no sugar, no carbs. Which is sugar.
Sugar was so hard for me.
Season 2, if you don't drink
being a
soda,
cereal
it's a
eater.
big one.
Yeah.
No sugar, no soda is such a big one. If you just don't drink soda, you're cutting out huge amounts of just
Sodas
wasted.
and juice, I find, right?
juice.
They're,
Yeah,
like,
and
just
especially
chock full of-
juices if they're not actually even like you shouldn't really drink juice because of that, right? They say you should like juice your vegetables.
Just eat
but never-
vegetables
Yeah.
or just eat fruits.
Eat fruits.
Honestly, just by only drinking water, I haven't put on weight as a result.
Interesting. I'm such a big, like, pasta girl, so, like, cutting out carbs is, like...
It's very hard.
I just
Yeah.
can't
It's
do
very hard.
it. I just can't. I was, like, raised on pasta, so... Like,
Pasta's amazing.
And the worst thing
So
about
good.
sometimes on set is they always have craft tables, but the craft tables are for everyone, not just for the actors. So
Right.
we'll walk by and it'll be just like a bunch of cookies and brownies,
Yep.
and then like I'm a sucker for PB&Js.
Yeah.
So I do indulge, but
At 2 a.m., there's nothing better than a coffee and a chocolate chip cookie, honestly.
and sometimes they make them fresh and they bring them around.
Oh, nice. So they're, like, warm and
Or
gooey.
sometimes they have those like midnight, like the second meals or whatever after dinner, and there'll be like mac and cheese with some hot sauce.
Nice.
Well, it's such a thing, like people,
So
humans,
good.
like food is such a thing for all animals, right?
Yes.
Like you see even how like dogs behave. They're just food obsessed.
Yeah.
And humans are the
It's a
same
primal
way.
need.
You get because food is basically everything. I imagine that people 10,000, 2,000, 150 years ago, 100 years ago, just spent their days looking for food in
Yeah.
any way, shape, or
I
form.
mean, it was sort of like their
And now
whole
that it's
goal
It
in
was a
life.
drive.
Yeah.
It was a drive. It was like
Right,
okay,
Right, like, we just need to get our...
permanently available.
the next meal.
Yeah.
We have to change our eating habits.
Yeah.
It's strange.
I think that's
No, I
also
agree.
weird. Something we had to do is kind of change the eating habits and time
Yeah.
for me, because with night shoots you get on a completely different schedule, and then
Right.
you're eating lunch at like 9 p.m.
Yeah.
You see how animated we are talking about this? This is an indication that the
This is
human
our
brain
drive. Still,
definitely...
we haven't evolved that much, you guys.
No,
Food is still something
food is
else.
such a thing.
I'm thinking about what I'm going to eat right now.
Yeah.
What am I going to do after this?
I actually haven't had breakfast. I'm thinking about egg whites.
Same. I'm thinking about egg whites. I'm thinking pasta, maybe
And cereal.
maybe pastrami. Cereal would be a good snack.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about you guys as individuals. So I know you're from Florida,
Yes.
correct? And you are a native New Yorker, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken, Matt. Let's talk about sort of like how you guys got into the practice of acting. I did a little bit of research, so I know you're
Cool.
basically a theater kid.
Yes.
And you started a little bit later getting your degree in business from IU, correct? I want to make sure that everything I saw on Wikipedia was right.
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes you can't trust those things. So I'm assuming acting has always been the goal for you.
Well,
And
Whether or not I knew it, it was.
Yeah.
I was more of like a sports kid.
Okay.
I played in Florida. You play sports all year round. So
Right.
I was constantly playing a sport, and
the
then
perk of having like a place with
having
two
like
seasons.
beautiful weather.
Yeah.
But then what I realized is as I got older, slowly I had to stop playing sports to keep acting.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I want to do the musical, so I can't play football in the fall in high school.
Right. So how
And
was
then exactly, and then oh, but I want to do the play, so I guess I can't really play soccer
that? Right.
in the spring. And then when it came time for me to start like trying to focus on what I wanted to do in college, it was a pretty easy decision to be like, well, I keep choosing this over
Right.
everything else.
I keep dropping everything else.
I
to
keep
be an
dropping
actor,
literally
so,
everything to keep
yeah.
acting, so why not just go for it?
Awesome. What about you for Matt? I'm sorry, I was going to say your process and that mingled together. What about for you, Matt?
Honestly, I think that when you're younger, don't always do what it is exactly what you want to do, because often you have some kind of opinion about yourself or how you want to be perceived, and so
For
you
sure.
don't want to
Yeah.
you don't want to do certain things. And in my case, I like sports, and I like the idea of either becoming a doctor or going into some area of business or
Okay.
economics, and that seemed right because of just that is how it was. So then you go and you do it, but it doesn't really actually fulfill you in the way that you thought it would, but you find it interesting. So it's sort of this, like, oh, I do enjoy this, but it's not ideal, it's not really. And then you sort of find the thing, oh, this thing that I've kind of been poo-pooing maybe is actually the thing that I really need to do. And,
So were you poo-pooing acting for a little bit?
No, I wasn't. In that case, no. Acting was not one of the ones that I sort of said no to.
Okay.
My sister had been an actor for a while, so I was aware of it. And I don't think I actually would have considered it it wasn't for the fact that she was there to sort of give the idea that it was a possibility,
Yeah.
I never would have actually thought of it as an option.
Because in my family, it was
Everything.
it wasn't like that though. I mean, like, because I come from like Latino parents who, like, my parents were very supportive, but my
Yeah.
grandparents didn't really understand it as a
Okay.
thing. So there was that kind of like, well,
Were your
you should get
grandparents more like, do
job.
stricter?
Yeah, oh,
Like,
when are you going to become a lawyer? So now
Right.
that you graduate from acting school, when are you going to law school?
right.
But now, of course, they see it as a possibility, and like I have younger cousins who they're very much championing to
Yeah.
pursue the arts.
Yeah,
pursue
but
their dreams.
you also got to tell them it doesn't always work so.
No,
so
it
easy.
doesn't.
Yes.
I think they're
Yeah.
aware because they're also like,
I think
I
people
got
get the
very
idea.
lucky.
People get the idea in their head that it's just you go and this is, look at
well,
Alberto, no problem.
There is no
Yeah.
path.
It's
Like
not
there
how
is
that
in other
works.
careers where you kind of can get one job that'll lead to the acting has those.
I also think so much of it is like right place, right timing, right?
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
At least it's like that in publishing. I know there's so many people that want to break in, but like,
I mean, I was
to
talking
run
to
in the right circles.
I actually ran into a friend in Washington Square yesterday who's an actor, and he was talking about starting to audition in pilot season, how he didn't get a couple auditions. I was like, well, if you book one audition, then you're not available for the one that you actually might be right for.
Right.
Because you're like, oh no, I booked this pilot, so now I'm shooting this. But
Totally.
so it was one of those things that everything you miss is just leading to a better opportunity. You have
Yeah.
to see it that way.
Interesting.
If not, it'll get really heavy.
A glass half full
Yeah,
perspective, you
exactly.
guys. I know that the show is filming in Toronto.
Yes.
So what has that been like, sort of like living out of a suitcase?
Well,
Assuming that that's what you guys are doing.
we've got our apartments. We've moved there.
Yeah,
Okay.
we live there.
You
Yeah,
are
we live there. We live
literally
in Toronto.
residents
And
now.
Toronto's got good
You know-
food, good drinks. So
I like Toronto a lot.
Yeah.
I always equate it to like New York if New York were still in college.
Okay.
yeah, so that okay, yeah.
No?
Torontonians.
He means that in the best
It's not
way
in a negative
possible.
way. The thing is,
No.
Toronto's a younger city.
It's
Yeah.
a younger city. It's
The transformation over the past, I mean, if you talk to people from there
Mhm.
who've lived there their whole lives, I mean, some of them are baffled about, like 8 years ago they built road
Yeah.
systems, 10, 20 years ago, and had no idea that it was going to be
The
like
city
this.
is completely
packed.
transformed.
I mean,
I
it's,
mean, in
it's
the last
incredible.
6 months from season 1 to season 2, they've seen an influx of so many new residents and so many people. The city's
Interesting.
growing at a rate I don't think they're ready for.
Skyscrapers.
It's
just
crazy.
Crazy.
It's a really cool place to be.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
It'll be interesting to see in like 20 years where
Mhm.
Toronto's at.
Yeah. Speaking of Toronto, I wanted to talk about sort of the differences between New York and Toronto. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously you both live in New York, so you're familiar with the city.
Mm.
Are there, I don't know, like things that, I guess ultimately the question is like the competition between New York and Toronto, which one
Well,
wins?
New
I-
York,
New York-
is an older city. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not old by European standards, but you're talking about. There's just a massive difference.
Established.
Yeah.
As the established, I mean, New York has been an important. It's just hard to compare the two
Yeah.
things. It's just also New York is sort of almost incomprehensibly massive.
Yeah.
I mean, just it reminds me of.
Massive and small all at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
it's like there's only certain Asian cities, and recently Sao Paulo kind of gave me a similar vibe of just this
Yeah.
is, except Sao Paulo is more sprawled, isn't it? But like, it's just a big city,
Yeah.
and Toronto's not quite that
not there
size.
yet.
To me,
It's
Toronto
not-
still kind of has like not
A
small
small
town
town
feel.
feel.
But yeah, exactly.
But
that.
you get so much more out of that sometimes.
Yeah.
Like being in Toronto is more relaxing and
Yes.
there's less, But we like Toronto, so I'm
I
happy.
I haven't felt overwhelmed by Toronto in a way that you can feel overwhelmed by New York
Right,
sometimes.
just by walking outside.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to ask 2 New York-centric questions. I know we're not necessarily making a competition between New York and Toronto, but
For the best that we don't.
Yeah.
just to like sort of like probe a little bit, if you had to choose between, let's say junk food, if you will, do they eat poutine and
Poutine, yeah.
Yes.
poutine? Okay,
I've actually
in
never had
Toronto? You haven't?
Our diets don't really allow for.
Oh no! Well, on a cheat day, you'll
I
have
used
to
to eat
have it.
poutine when I was younger because I like gravy.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
down with some poutine. It's
Yeah.
delicious.
Gravy.
Okay, well then I can't ask my food question since you haven't had it yet. But let's just say, I don't know. I was gonna ask you
No,
like
ask,
city
ask.
or beach life. It's tough. I was gonna say New York pizza or poutine, but like if you haven't had it,
I would regardless most likely still choose New York
But
pizza.
pizza's it's a cheap
Pizza's-
food. You can't compare other foods to pizza. It's
No,
crazy.
no. Also,
like
like
fries
you can-
with gravy versus like
Pizza.
Also, like,
Pizza.
I think
Pizza
there's something like
beats
really
all
cool
foods.
about pizza in New York. Is like you can stop by like a 99-cent place, get a slice, and keep
yeah.
walking.
Jeez, I have to go do
Like,
that.
that's what I'm gonna do
Yeah,
now. I'm gonna do that after
I'll
this.
have that.
But like, poutine, I don't know that it's a thing, and it's all messy, and
so good though.
I mean, it looks amazing,
it's like
but
the
it doesn't feel like as on the go.
Toronto version of a sloppy Joe, but it isn't on
Yes.
the go.
It's not.
You're
It's not.
right.
It doesn't feel as on the go as pizza. So I
Very
would still
true.
choose New York pizza.
Okay, well, since I get... Oh, well, okay, last question, actually.
Yes.
Any interest in Broadway, and is there a show that you guys are dying to see?
Of course we're interested.
Yeah, I have a huge
I
interest
haven't
in
looked what's
Broadway.
on right now, to be honest.
I haven't either. I know there are a bunch of like theater companies that I like.
Yeah.
Gotta look into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotta check it out. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for this interview, and thanks for tuning in, you guys.